we're in Capital Reef National Park, and we're in, like, I guess, I don't know if this is BLM land, but I think it's national forest land. And I'm here with somebody I met hiking yesterday on a trail here, and we were pretty far away from the road and away from the parking. What's your name?
My name is Drew.
Drew, where are you from?
From California.
I met him. We talked about camping at this place. I never really expected him to be here when I came back, but there he is. He was here waiting for me, and he actually picked the exact spot I parked in the night before. How did he know that? You knew this was meant to happen. How was the hike yesterday?
It was great. Yeah, I went up to Navajo Knobs, had a great 360-degree view of Capital Reef. Couldn't ask for a better hike, really.
And I can't believe I listened to his advice, and it was getting close to the end of the day, as you all saw in my video from yesterday, that I was coming down to the end when I got back, but it was good advice that I went up to Navajo Knobs. Now, when we were out there talking, you mentioned to me that you live in a van. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, I got this van about 3 months ago. I went and worked for Burning Man for a month and a half, so I wanted sort of my own space, not to have a tent there. So I got this van, and now I figured I might as well use it a little more than just parking it. So I've been driving around the United States, going to national parks. Before I had the van, I was bicycle touring, so I was living in a tent.
Wait, you rode a bicycle and lived in a tent?
Yeah.
Oh, you did that in the United States, didn't you?
No, I started that in Myanmar, of all places.
Where's Myanmar?
It's right north of Thailand, south of northeast India, sort of like south of Bangladesh.
Oh, I thought it was by Mars or something. Oh, but that was another conversation we had.
Yeah, that's true. Elon Musk, yeah.
So wait a second. You rode a bike in other countries.
Yeah.
Are you nuts?
Maybe a little.
That's good.
I've been called worse.
That's why we're hanging out together.
That's why I told you to go up to Navajo Knobs. You seemed like someone adventurous enough to where you wouldn't be terrified if you ended up being caught on a trail after dark.
Yeah, well, here's the question though. You told me how old you thought I was when we were on that trail. How old did you think I was?
After we talked on the trail, I was guessing maybe mid to late 40s.
See that? Adrenaline sports, everyone. Adrenaline sports. Do them. You'll stay young. So, tell me more about your bike trips. I mean, did you have many breakdowns?
Yeah, all the time, and especially at first. I mean, when I first started bicycle touring, I knew pretty much nothing about bicycle mechanics. You could probably say I was the world's worst bike mechanic.
Oh!
But you'd be amazed. No matter where I've been in the world, when something goes wrong on my bicycle, people are happy to help. Like they see you and they see that there's a problem, and even if they don't speak any English, they will do everything they can to make sure that you get the problem fixed. I've had people give me and my bike a ride to the nearest city so I could get parts. I've had that happen in the United States, Japan, in Thailand, people helped me that way.
Wait a second. What were all the countries you were in? United States, Thailand, Japan, and Myanmar? Or what? Myanmar.
Also called Burma.
Burma, okay, that makes more sense to me.
That was the British name for it. But
okay.
The British no longer occupy it, and the people there call it Myanmar. So that's what I call it. But yeah, that's where I started bicycle touring. It was actually it was my first time I'd ever really traveled alone, and it was the very first time I'd ever stayed at a hostel. And I met these two people at the hostel that had been bicycling for 6 months. They had started in Japan, and they had been working their way through Asia. And I had never heard of bicycle touring. I didn't know it was a sport. I didn't know people did it, and they were telling me all about their trip, and I thought, that sounds awesome. I was traveling with a backpack, staying in hostels or cheap guest houses, using public transportation, and I thought that that sounded pretty awesome, to be able to just control where you go every day and be totally self-sufficient like that.
Were they nice to you in these hostels, or were they hostile towards you?
No, they were great. Hostels are great as long as you bring earplugs, you know.
Wait, what do you need the earplugs for?
Well, you know, at a hostel, you're sleeping in like a shared room. So you're sleeping, usually it's like bunk beds, and there's maybe 8 other people in the room with you that you don't know. So there's always someone who's snoring, so you gotta have the earplugs or something. But the nice thing about hostels is you meet a lot of other travelers that you wouldn't otherwise meet if you're cloistered in your own little room. And that was the case here. So I met these 2 people, and they told me about bicycle touring. I said, man, I want to do that someday. And they kind of talked amongst themselves. It was a couple. And then they asked me, hey, you know, we're going to India next. Do you want to come with us? We'll help you find a bike. We'll help you get everything sorted, and we'll kind of take you under our wing. So thought about it for about 2 minutes, and I said, sure, why not? Because I have a policy that I've been following the last few years, sort of a rule that I don't say no to adventure.
Oh, no wonder why we hooked up. We're both into adventure. Isn't that crazy?
So yeah, I bought a bike in Myanmar. I bungee corded my backpack to the back rack and got my visa for India, and we bicycled through northern Myanmar and then into rural northeast India, about a 2-month trip. And we were going through villages in India where Westerners had never visited before. People would tell us this all the time. They were shocked to see us. They didn't understand why we would want to come there, and mainly why are you bicycling all this way? Like, can't you afford a motorcycle? We heard that all the time. But it was an incredible experience. And since then, I've been addicted to bicycle touring. So I've done a lot of solo tours since then. I did a 5-month tour through Europe. I did a 2.5-month trip through Japan this year. And then a couple years back, I did a trip across Highway 50 through Nevada.
Oh, yeah, you mentioned that, yeah. Now, hold on, wait a minute. How could you have done all this? How old are you? Are you my age and I'm your age?
No, I'm 29.
29 years old, and that's pretty cool. I mean, I met somebody, nice friendship. He's so easy to get along with. I think we're meant to meet. And tell me a little more about your bicycling. And hey, give me your, how about the scariest time you had on the bike?
Huh.
Was it in the rain or was it in the storm? What was it?
I had some tough times I was in Ireland last year in September, and there was all this really unseasonable weather because there was a lot of hurricanes in the Atlantic Ocean. It was causing all these really severe storms in Ireland. So there was a couple nights in the tent where the wind was so strong that it was actually like folding my tent and hitting me in the face throughout the night because it was folding the tent down so severely. And those nights I didn't get any sleep. I was just happy that my tent made it through the night, basically. So that was, I wouldn't say it was scary, but it was difficult. I did have a night in Nevada where I was camped out in the middle of nowhere, which describes most of Nevada. And
Area 51, everybody.
No, that's in New Mexico. Oh, no, wait, is that
that's
Nevada?
in Nevada, yeah.
Okay, you're right. I'm thinking of Roswell.
But not where he was.
No,
He's
no.
Route 50, okay? Not Area 51.
If you're watching this NSA, I was never at Area 51.
Yeah, because you could go to jail. Did he just wink?
No. You saw nothing. So yeah, I had this night where I'd had a fire and the fire kind of went out. And I was in my tent going to sleep. It was dark, and I had kind of heard some coyotes up on a ridge, and I had heard them howling, and I was, oh, hope they don't come down here. Well, sure enough, as soon as the fires died out, they did, and they must have smelled my food because they were sniffing all around my tent, and there was no one around. No one goes on Highway 50 at night, so if they had decided to attack me, it could have been bad. So I was just sitting in my tent, had my knife out, thinking about the advice of all the old-time Nevada people I'd met that said, oh, son, you should have a firearm to do what you're doing. And I always, oh, I don't need a firearm. Well, that night, I was kind of wishing I did have a firearm, honestly. But I made a bunch of noise and was able to scare off the coyotes, so it was okay. Had a guy threaten me on the road in Ireland. He made an unsafe pass, and I kind of made a hand gesture on him. I didn't flip him off. I just kind of went like, hey, and he slows down. What's the problem? And I said, well, wait, the pass you kind of made was pretty dangerous back there. He starts going off on me. You're not even in your own country. If I see you again, I'm going to run you off the road. He gets out of his truck. He pulls his truck over to block me from going forward. He gets out and walks around the other side, and looks like he's about to punch me. And I'm standing on my bike, you know, I don't really want to get in a fight with this guy, and luckily a tour bus comes along, and so he kind of realizes, oh, someone can see me threatening this bicyclist, so he gets back in his truck and threatens me one last time and drives off. That's probably the only time anywhere I've been threatened by somebody. I was attacked by a hawk in Japan that tried to steal my dinner. I had cooked up some ramen and had some hard-boiled eggs in there, and I had seen the hawk kind of sitting up on a tall fence, and all of a sudden I hear this whoosh as I'm about to take my first bite of my ramen, and I turn and I kind of shift, and all of a sudden this hawk, this talons just like go into my arm, because he was trying to get my dinner, you know. And yeah, so that was the only time I was actually directly attacked by an animal. But
and a firearm wouldn't help you there.
No, it wouldn't. Well, maybe a shotgun, you know. But I don't know if the Japanese would take too kindly to me carrying a shotgun around their country. They don't really have the same right to bear arms.
You're not even allowed to have a firearm in Japan. And you did mention something about Japan. It was really unique about the way the people were in Japan. Tell everybody about how the people were in Japan.
Yeah. So in Japan, the amount of respect people show each other, it's unlike any other country I've been to. You never see anybody get angry in public. So you never hear anyone yell at anyone else. You never see anyone make obscene hand gestures to anyone else.
Like
not one time.
Like when you made that gesture to the guy in
Ireland.
Ireland.
Yeah, and I didn't even flip him off. I just went like this. But I never would do anything like that in Japan, even if someone maybe passed me too close, because they're so respectful of one another and of me, you know, as a visitor, that it would feel wrong to break that social code.
That's good. So you like being in Japan?
Oh yeah, very much so.
Oh yeah.
Excellent food. Really kind people.
Are you ever going back?
Well,
tell me the story about.
Funny thing, yeah, my bicycle is still in Japan, unfortunately, because when I tried to fly back to the United States, the cheap flight that I booked through T-Way, this Korean airline, they wouldn't allow my bicycle on the plane. They said the box was too big. I've never had this problem before. I've flown many times with my bicycle in a huge box. No airline has ever given me a problem about it, and they wouldn't let me on the plane. So
wait, talking about airlines before you go, he takes all these airlines from China, Korea, all these airlines that, you know, I'm used to taking like Eastern, Delta, all the big ones in the United States.
Yeah.
Tell me some of the airlines.
I mean, my favorite airline is probably Singapore Airlines, because your bike flies free on Singapore.
Wow.
And I would say that most airlines internationally I've been on, they treat you a lot better than American Airlines tend to.
Wait a second. Hey, we're trying to make high production over here. So that they treat you better than American Airlines. Go ahead.
Yeah, they're just, you know, most other airlines, you get a free meal on board. And,
hey,
and
we're doing high production.
Like
so they
get off my lawn.
So they give you food and stuff.
Yeah, it's just a better experience, I'd say, except for T-Way, which didn't allow me to fly with my bike. So I was able to store my bike at a local bike shop near the airport. I had made friends with the airport manager, and I'd made friends with a local bike shop owner. And they coordinated about an hour before my flight was supposed to leave and arranged for my bike to be stored there indefinitely, free of charge, because that's just how Japanese people treat guests, is they want to make sure that everything is going smoothly for you. So I plan to go back, probably in the spring, and get my bike and maybe continue that tour.
So, okay, we're going to have to sum this up. Today, Drew and I are going on a hike. And then tomorrow I'm out of here, and we'll probably hang out tonight and have another good evening. And what are your plans for the next whatever?
That's a really good question. That's what I'm trying to figure out. For now, I'm just traveling around, going to a bunch of national parks and national monuments, and just sort of seeing more of the United States. But I don't really have a plan until the spring, so I'm trying to figure out what to do for the winter.
One day at a time.
Right.
Hey, it was good to have, first of all, to meet Drew. Secondly, I'm glad he decided to sit down and tell me a little bit, because he's told me so much about his life of traveling, and it was enjoyable to hear all these things. I hope you all like it out there, and let's get ready for today. The sun is shining, and I don't see a cloud anywhere. I do see some mountains with snow on them, though. Ready to go, Drew?
Ready to go.
All right. Hey, thank you. Tell me a little bit about your van.
Yeah, it's a 1996 Dodge Ram 2500 van with a conversion done by the Explorer Van Company. So, yeah, it was state-of-the-art in 1996. I'm sure it's got 2 TVs, 2 VCRs. Originally, it came with a Super Nintendo, which is no longer in there, but it's got a little fold-down sofa in the back that I've been sleeping on. And
could you stand up in there?
Almost. Almost. I can stand up and I have to just put my head down a little bit, but it's enough to where I can change comfortably in there.
You're taller than me. How tall are you?
5'11".
Yeah, I'm like 5'7.5". 5.
Okay.
I used to be 5'8.5". You shrink after a little time. Again, thanks for being on the channel, and I'm looking forward to the hike today.
Yeah, me too.